What's up, guys? It's your girl, Miss O, and we are back with another review of me. And today we are going to wrap up the Real Housewives of Rhode Island Season 1, Part 2 reunion. And as y'all can hear in my voice, I'm not feeling too hot, but I had to get my thoughts out for this. Rulla, you are a fool, la la. But with that being said, like the video, subscribe to the channel because I need some subscribers, and let somebody know I'm over here doing reviews. So we open up the episode with Mrs. Whoville herself, Rulla, because she's had that work done, with her yelling and screaming all of these unproven accusations towards Joellen. She said she's sleeping with doctors. You know it, you know it, know it, pointing to the ladies on the couch and basically calling Joellen a slut. But you actually should be calling Cheater B that. Somewhere in this reunion, Rulla does not want anyone to speak on her cheater ass of a husband, but she want to come and fight for her husband. Rulla, this whole season, we have watched you allow Brian to continuously play in your face. If you're fine with that, you're fine with that. But what's not going to happen for the viewers, and it looks like for Joellen's sake, you're not about to keep playing in my face. The man is a liar. The man is a cheater. And if you want to continue to be in a relationship with him and work it out, that is y'all business. But Joellen has kept going on and on and on about this because y'all keep saying she is a liar. And with the receipts that she's provided for this review, this reunion, my girl ain't a liar. Gaslighter, an antagonist, she might be. But lying on your cheating ass husband, she is not. In the defense of her husband, she said he is not a whore. He made a mistake, a bad mistake. Ruler, play stupid games, win the stupid prize, and your prize is looking stupid on national fucking TV. You, as a mother who have a daughter, should be ashamed of yourself. After all the screaming and yelling, Liz chimed in and she said, "Look, Joellen, it does not look like you was doing this with good intentions." And Joellen fired back and said, "Look, when I started, it was with good intentions. But when you were doing all this bullshit, your husband calling my job," she didn't say that, but this is what she's thinking. "Your husband calling my job, trying to get me fired, all of this calling me a liar. What you're not going to do is playing on my name. Ruler, you're okay with your husband playing in your face and playing with your name and your image and likeness. Me, Joellen, I'm not cool with that. You gonna call me a liar? I'm gonna make sure you know I'm not lying about this." And the bad part about it is, Ruler, I understand if you want to keep your family intact, but to persistently come out and say that he isn't doing what can be proven makes you look like a fool. And you, like Ashley told you, you're better than that. I hope you know that. So another one of those accusations that Rulala put out there, she said, "You know what you did, Liz. Everyone up here know what you did, Liz." And it looked like, not Liz, I'm sorry, Joellen. It looked like Joellen may have done something, or the ladies may have heard that Joellen has done something because of Kelsey's response and also Rosie's look. So are we gonna explore that, Andy, in season 2 with Miss Joellen? So Andy is trying to bring these ladies back together. So he asked a viewer question. The viewer question was for Rosie, and it was basically, when would a house be complete? So she answers and basically said, "Look, my husband told me to tell y'all sometime in mid-July, which we are almost there. And then, so the follow up question from Andy was, and we are ending up with how many square feet? And Miss Rosie replied with, Rich just keeps telling me to tell everyone that is 500 square feet. Um, and then Andy turns to Kelsey and asks her, "Is that satisfactory for you?" And she said, "I don't really care." And I'm so happy that Andy snapped back and said, "Well, it seems like you care because you kept asking." And Kelsey, are you delusional? This was your whole storyline. You had a two-part storyline. You getting away from your ex, who we don't know if that's your ex or not, and you talking about Rosie being the Rosie ass and trying to call her a liar and point out that she's exaggerating. Certain stuff Rosie does not know. Okay, 8,000 from 5,000. That's a 3,000 square foot difference. But then you also want to throw in there that they were using the plans from the previous owner. So the fuck what if they were using the plans from the previous owner? How we got to the 8,000 square feet is because they were going to do 3 levels. They decided that doing 3 levels was not what they wanted to do. I don't understand what your true issue is with Rosie Kelsey. And we're never going to find out, I guess. So when Kelsey sprung this up on her about using the previous owner for friends, Rosie was just like, "Look, here you go with another lie. You think you know what you don't know. Actually, let me go to the back and get my little handy dandy briefcase because I got the receipts in there." Now, what I don't like is that she wasn't aware that she should have just brung that briefcase and put it behind the couch because she was going to need it. Also, Andy said, if you go back there and go get the briefcase, we're on you now. You don't have the time to do so. Um, I hope you delivered those receipts after the reunion to Kelsey since she cares so fucking much. But anywho, so, with a little frustration, she does sit back down on the couch to discuss her piece. And then we find out from another viewer question, because I didn't see this on the web, but I don't think I was really looking for it. We find out that Dolores said that because of Rosie, she didn't get to film as much on the show. And Rosie just fired back like, "Andy, do I have that much power? Is that up to me?" Oh, okay. And then he asked her about Dolores, and Rosie said, "Hey, I thought I've been around her a handful of times. I thought Miss Dolores was cool, so I was kind of shocked and surprised when I seen that floating around. But hey, it is what it is." So then we get another viewer question, and it was just basically saying, "I think you're the first housewife to admit that you were bleeding from your backside, and because of that, you had to wear a diaper." And she basically goes into the whole spiel, debunking Kelsey's recollection on why she was no longer at the news station. She said, "Look, I had colitis. I had to wear a diaper. I was bleeding out of my rear end. And once I took a leave of absence, I actually enjoyed not having to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning for the last 10, 15 years. So I decided not to go back to work." Rosie, I totally understand. As a baker in a large grocery store chain, I have to be to work sometimes between 3 and 4 in the morning. It is very taxing on your body. As a mom who have 3 children who have their own schedules going on top of my schedule and my partner's schedule, girl, I totally understand. I also feel like that you shouldn't have explained that, but I love your transparency about it. Y'all bitches want to come at me with 2 lies and the truth, and I gotta debunk the 2 lies and put the rest of the truth on the truth. So here you go, Kelsey. You look like a fucking fool. You look like somebody who just had a preconceived notion of Miss Rosie, and then Miss Nosy Rosie had to put you in your place. I'm gonna tell y'all now, when we first started Real Housewives of Rhode Island, I wasn't a big fan of Rosie, but I can tell you now, Rosie is one of my favorites. So Andy asks Kelsey, does she still believe that Kelsey left her job because she was sleeping with someone that was in a higher position? And here go Kelsey backpedaling and popping on the handstand, going back on what she said. Kelsey, every time it seemed like you was just getting this information like from online on Reddit and stuff that you heard from your girlfriends while y'all were out day drinking or something like that, and you run that shit to the show with no actual factual proof, and now you sitting up here with egg on your face. Like, I just don't understand. I really hope that y'all can move forward, but not for real. Move forward, just be casual within your coexistence. But she does say that she don't think that her exit from the job at the news station was as clean as she's trying to be. And that little rumor, it might not have had anything to do with her job per se, but more towards the basketball coach that she proved to us that she was not having an affair with. So we jump back in, and Andy is trying to change the mood on the stage, and he asks Alicia, so tell me about the first time you and Billy met. And I think he asked this question because all of us are aware that um I don't want to say she's developmentally delayed because I don't believe that. I think she's stuck in a certain time frame in her mind. So she thinks like a fairy tale, like a teenage girl or something. And so he asked this question, and she was like, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, hell no, Billy was a stalker. And y'all know, if y'all watch Rhode Island, y'all know Alicia's accent. So she's a stalker. She said he was a stalker. So she goes on to say that he's very, very persistent. He beat her down. So that's how they end up getting together, and metaphorically, not physically. So then Andy asks her, are there any talks about the wedding? You got a date? And she said, I'm actually talking about it. And she said, excuse me. Alicia says that she's talking to her family and friends about it. And the fact that she's actually talking about the wedding is a big deal for her. So in this season, we do see Billy showing Alicia the route because he works a billion hours and also transport their daughter to and from dance practice. And so Andy asks her, has anything changed on that front? And basically, no, Alicia not doing it. The dance place is an hour away. She can only drive up to 20 minutes before her anxiety kick in, and she need her peppermint oil and her crackers and whatever else she need to, ease her anxiety. So then Andy says, hey, let's talk about crackers. A lot of people are wondering, do you have any things in the works? And she says, I actually do have something in the works with the company that makes the oyster crackers. I actually love the oyster crackers, especially with a good lobster bisque or crab bisque. Yes, I love it. But she says that she has something in the work for her own personal cracker. So Andy asks her, since you eat so many crackers, how do you stay so lean? And she says, I do eat protein. with my crackers, turkeys, little stuff like that. But how I tend to stay lean is doing James Fonda. Her auntie introduced her to James Fonda, and that was that. Now we do find out that that girl cannot say almond. I don't know what she said. It sounded like she said element or something, but she didn't sound like she said almond. So we get into a viewer question, and the viewer question, they wanted to know has she's gotten any stake into Piece of Mama. And Alicia, I think Billy hasn't really given you anything because you're not showing any for real interest. She did let us know that she is going to get the merchandise side of Piece of Mama, and what else she say? Yeah, in the season she was asking for like 5 or 10% of the restaurant, and Alicia knows what she wants but doesn't know how to express what she wants. And that's that's the whole thing right there. So Andy asks Kelsey, well, since you are familiar with getting men to pay for things, what would you suggest to Miss Alicia? What do you think she should do? And she said, having your own bank account is probably first and foremost the most important thing that you can have. I absolutely agree with her, Alicia, but you're also taking the advice from a woman who did not know how to write a check, and her boyfriend had to show her how to do that. So take the advice however you see fit. But with that being said, definitely having your own bank account. And we see why Billy kind of moves the way he moves when it comes to Alicia, because Alicia wants, but she don't want to be present for it. This man calls for a financial meeting between you two, and you do not want to be bothered with that. And then you mad because you got to reach out to a woman to get an allowance or something like that. Ma'am, if he gave you a credit card, y'all will be in debt because you look like a spender. I bet you if he gave you a credit card and told you to do whatever you see fit, I bet you we can get you to drop Selena off at dance practice. Billy, you should try that. So, also in this, Andy let her know, look, y'all renewed for a second season. Your bankroll is about to be bigger. I think you might want to get a handle on what's going on. And I think everybody agrees with what Andy had to say in that notion. So we got another viewer question, and I'm paraphrasing the question. It was basically, Alicia, why won't you go get a lawyer, drum up your own paperwork, present it to Billy, and either he gonna put up or shut up. And yeah, but Alicia is so disinterested in what's going on. Alicia is the type of woman that just want to be taken care of and know that she want to be taken care of. But I think because she's coming on the show with a lot of independent women, now she's put in a space where she needs to know where her money is going, where it's coming out of, and what she can do. And I think honestly, this just sprung up on her with her requesting all these things. Further along in the episode, Ashley says, look, I've been getting to get to know you, Alicia, and Billy. And based off what I know, that man loves you and he wouldn't dare do that to you. And that's all fine and dandy until Mad Day comes. So, Alicia, get your paperwork together. Get you a lawyer, get your paperwork together, drum it up, present it to Billy, and if he's serious, he will sign on the dollar line. So then Andy asked the entire cast, who on the cast actually has a prenup? And only one of the ladies raised their hand, and that was Rulla. And one of the ladies, I couldn't catch who it was. They was like, that was a long pause before she had answer. And she was like, we both have one, but it was my idea. Um, Good for you, Ruler, because I think you're gonna need to pull that paperwork out. I really think you're gonna need to pull that paperwork out. So then Andy asked her about the house, if her name was on the house, and she said it's in a trust or something like that. But I don't even know what that means. See, Alicia, you are asking for things and you don't have a clear understanding of what you're actually asking for. And Rulla does fill her in and tell her what a trust is. What I think Alicia needs to do is not necessarily get with Rulla because I wouldn't want that bitch to know none of my business. But anyway, I would get with someone in the same kind of wheelhouse of what Ruler does and actually sit down with them and figure out this whole situation. Like, express what you're looking for, what you're meaning, what you will accept and what you won't accept, and go on from there. It sounds like you are really, really lost in the sauce, Alicia. So when Ashley says to Alicia, he's a really good man, I don't think he'll leave like that. Rosie actually agreed he's the best, and then Alicia said, "Yeah, he's alright." Alicia, if Billy did something, you gotta let us know because the way it's presenting is you just being a brat. You're screaming you want something, but not quite sure what you want or how to retrieve it, and then you're just being a brat about it. Just like the scene in the last episode on the season finale. You wanted him to repropose. Now, he should have got you another ring. I do agree on that. But he did what you wanted him to do. And the whole entire proposal, you were complaining about what he didn't do or what he normally wouldn't do. Like, it seems like you ain't gonna never be satisfied. Mr. Billy, I will say this. You have to have a strong mind and a forgiving heart to deal with Miss Alicia. Because dealing with her just on a parasocial thing, watching her from the screen, I couldn't imagine what it's like to deal with her on a personal level. But Alicia, you are one of my faves. I do got a soft spot for you, a soft spot. So then Andy asks Rosie about her house or whatever, and she said, "Look, I paid for half of the house. I sold my condo. We put our money together." And Kelsey couldn't wait to spill this tea that she got from Joellen's husband Gary because he does mortgage. And basically it's like, you got two mortgages on your house. And she like, girl, this is a construction loan and a mortgage that was combined together. I know how you got the information because y'all looking at each other. I know you got it from Gary. I love me some Rosie. Rosie is here for all the shit. If you want to call something out, we're gonna call it out. I'm gonna lay it out there and I'm gonna give you names, dates, times, all of that. I really, I really fuck with Rosie. So here we go again. Kelsey backpedaling and popping and saying we're both not innocent. We both have been being mean girls to you. And Rosie said, "Yeah, after weeks of you being a bitch to me, yes, I'm not gonna be nice." And I agree with Rosie. I'm not gonna try to be nice with a person that's been being catty with me this entire time and lying on my name. Like that's what y'all are forgetting here. So now we get into Miss Rhode Island, and basically, Andy was being nosy, getting up in her business. Where you staying now? I stay with Billy now. Is your ex still paying for uh, your stuff? She said no. Billy is paying for my car. I'm paying for my insurance. Now she goes into a little detail about this arrangement, not arrangement that she had with her ex. So she said she learned things as their relationship progressed. He did have that one lady that was in Miami. They did meet, and those two had an understanding that when he's in MIA, you don't post any pictures with him, and when he is in RI, I won't post any pictures of him. Well, whatever fuss y'all vote, the fact that you guys could be honest with one another, I'm cool with that. So then we wrap that all up. And Andy asked the ladies, Liz, you also admitted that you was in a relationship and had an ex doing that for you. Any of the other ladies has had this going on? None of the ladies answered. And then Andy said, Rulla, how about you? And she was like, no. Kelsey said, y'all missing out. They may or they may not. So then Andy turns to Rulla and asks her how she and Brian were doing. I don't know if it was the editing, but she took that pointy old nose and turned it to the left. And then it went on commercial break. We come back and we're getting into Rulla now. She answers that they are doing better. They are getting by day. And yeah, so we get into it. So Andy asked the ladies by a show of hands who all thought that Ruler was really sick. And they all started raising their hands up with Kelsey hand going up last. And I think I understand why Kelsey hands went up last. And it's because, yes, we do believe that you were sick. But we believe that you were sick because of your cheating ass husband. And you letting him or allowing him to see you through there. So, yeah. But then Ruler had to fire her back and say, because it didn't seem like it. And she said it was stress induced for sure. And that's because you up here playing these games with these ladies and with your husband being okay with him doing the things that he has been doing. So with Rulla putting emphasis on that she was in the hospital 2 separate times for 14 days straight, laying on her back, she said it definitely was stress induced and it was pretty much a whole summer. So then Joellen chimes in, she said, so we can agree that this was going on the whole summer, right? And Rulla said, I don't know. Now, Rulla did admit that Brian was doing things and saying things so that the mistress wouldn't go look wild. It is really heartbreaking to watch this woman sit up here and fight for a man who do not give a about her. And it's very clear he would not have never a double in. He would have never allowed this to take place if he really cared about you. He would have told you all of this stuff before y'all started shooting, and you would have been able to defend yourself when it came to these ladies. But he didn't. He left you out there like a deer in headlights, and you making it worse by making yourself look like a fool, actually defending him. So we go over all the times where Joellen tried to present Rulla with this information, and Andy asks her, what's going on. Rulla say, look, we got to track it on each other. I just wish people would, and I'm paraphrasing, I just wish people would let us handle our shortcomings with us, but it's just plastic everywhere. And if y'all supposed to be friends, let's not glaze over it. So then she said, we had this tracking app on, basically they sharing each other locations. But then Joellen said, do you remember me telling you that Brian was tracking you? And Will said, I don't recall, maybe, but I'm not really sure. And then they show a flashback when we was at the polo match, and Joellen telling Rulla in front of Brian that he was tracking her, and he said, "No, I'm not. That was so long ago." And Joellen was like, "No, you told the mistress this about a week ago." And the reason why this man was tracking her is because he didn't want her to be in the vicinity of him and the mistress. He wanted to make sure if they out and about, Rulla was nowhere to be found. What a mess. So then we bring up the accusation slash rumor that Alicia brought to us about her Spanish teacher and her Spanish teacher being married to Brian, and that supposedly Brian cheated on her and had an affair with Miss Rulla. Now we do find out Miss Inspector Joe got some paperwork. She was online on court.com or whatever it's on, found the divorce records. They filed originally in 2010. It says that the case closed 2016. Joellen asks Rulla, like when they start dating. And baby, let me tell you, if you and your husband gonna lie, y'all gotta have y'all lie together. Rulla, you look like a fucking fool. Joella is up here doing her job by proving that she is not a liar. So Rulla says that Brian had already been divorced and living on his own a year and a half to 2 years before she was even introduced to Brian. Joellen fired back with a question. So when did you meet Brian? And then she said, no, I'm not answering that question. Joellen was like, when did y'all get married? When is y'all divorced? I know when my divorce is. It's July 30th. Like, why you can't answer these questions? She can't answer the questions, Joellen, because she's fucking lying. So, because Rulla did not want to answer Joellen, Andy stepped up and said, so, when did you and Cheater be meet? And she said, in 2013. So Joellen says, okay, and what year was Brian divorced? And Rulla said, 2010. And then Joellen said, well, and what year did y'all get married? And she said, 2016. And she said, 2016? Okay. She was like, why are you asking me all these questions? I'm just curious. And that's when Joellen broke that shit down. She said, they got divorced in 2010, right? So they didn't get divorced in 2010. They actually got divorced in 2016. So we were like, Joellen. And she really trying to cut her off. She like, Joellen, the man got the divorce document. Joellen checkmated her ass. She said, and so do I. And that's when they pull up the information online showing that Cheater B and Spanish teacher supposedly finalized their divorce in 2016. So with Joellen spitfiring these questions, Andy turns and asks her, so what's your accusation? And she said, are they even married? I don't even care if they married. The fact that she's okay with allowing him making her look like a fool is a problem to me. Andy asks his Rulla if she's legally married, and Rulla said, I'm 100% legally married. So here we go again with the final squad of questions. Miss After Andy asked Rulla, was she married? She said 100%. She said, Joellen said, okay, so when is your anniversary? And Rulla is trying to figure out where Joellen is going with this line of questioning. That's why she won't answer the question. So then Joellen said, when you got pregnant, was Brian still legally married? And she said, no. Ruth says, no. Joellen said, yes, he was. And it just throws Andy for a loop because he covered his face. And Rulla said, no, that is not the truth, Joellen. And she said, oh, I have proof. And then she said, who the fuck are you? You're a psychopath. And baby, Joellen bust out laughing. She said, I know, thank you. I can't remember which one of the ladies had said they wouldn't put it past Joellen if she was to take somebody out. In this very moment, I understood what they meant. Willa wanted to know where Joellen was going with this line of questioning. Joellen is basically trying to prove that they are liars. Joellen said, look, I had a baby out of wedlock. Like, it's okay. Um, she said, Rulla answered, we've been together 9.5, almost 10 years. And Joellen said, really? Then Brian must be a polygamist because he was still married to the Spanish teacher at the same time. So Rulla tries to bait Joellen with this evidence see if she got the receipts. Now she said, "This is news to my ears. If you got the proof, show us." Joellen put that damn phone out so quick, got up to show Andy, and then she walked past him and went straight to Rulla and gave her her phone to show her when the dates have closed. And you see that it's supposed to have closed in March of 2016. Rulla got pregnant with a child in February. It's looking like Joellen is not the liar here. So Andy, and I'm paraphrasing, says, "Look, it seems like Cheater B has lied to you before. Could he have possibly lied about this?" And she said, "I don't know. Let's ask him." So they go back and forth, and because Rulla cannot be honest with herself, she tells Joellen to ask Brian those questions, which they're going to get into because the husbands are entering the stage. First, Billy comes out. We love us some Billy. We really do. So when the men get on stage, we do a little pleasantry talk. Then we jump to Gary and Joella. And it was a viewer question, paraphrasing. Basically, they wanted to know their timeline. Gary let them know, hey, been knowing Jim for a long time. He's practically my best friend who never slept with each other. Yeah, in seventh grade, I got a fistful of boob, but that's it. I was interested in Joellen. Once we got out of high school, we got to hang, and here we are. So Andy wanted to know, would Brian ever donate his sperm to Jen? And he said, no, I would never do that. And Alicia bimbo head and said, why not? Girl, because he is married to Jen's little sister and they have children. And if he give his sperm to Jen, then they're going to be sibling cousins. It's just, no, we can't do that, lady. So Andy asks Kelsey, now that you and Bill are official, is there a timeline on a wedding or babies? And she said, no, life is just getting fun. But I believe if I asked him to drop, he would. And Gary, Liz's husband, said, explain drop. Um, because him and Liz was on the same page. They thought he was talking about a baby. So Andy wanted some clarification with Kelsey's timeline between the two boyfriends. And she like, look, I was with that guy for 10 years. I'm paraphrasing. Look, I was with that guy for 10 years. We would break up 2-3 times a year. I'm at the house. I'm not at the house. So it is what it is. Then we jump to Liz, Gary, and Dino. And they wanted to know, Andy asked, it was said that you and Dino are friends too. He said, yes, we are friends. But the guy happened to be more famous than us. And Liz, under her breath, said, for all the wrong reasons. I just hope you didn't have nothing to do with that, Liz. So now we get down to the questions. Andy says, hey, earlier today, which was in part one, Liz said that she was out there on Block Island. She was seen flirting and dancing, and that Brian called you in the morning time. And he said, yeah, Rulla didn't know what the hell was going on. So apparently, a friend called Gary about this stuff. But Brian and the friend were together. So instead of the friend being the middle person, he gave the phone to Brian, and Brian spilled the beans on what was going on Block Island with Liz and the 30-year plus person she ain't seen. Yeah, you trying to rat on everybody else in your house is fucked up, Brian. So we get into Alicia and Billy, and Andy was just basically asking Billy questions. He like, she doesn't know what a trust is, and Billy pulled a trump out. He said, "Look, if you would agree to taking Selena, our daughter, to and from dance studio, you can have 50% of my half in this restaurant business going on here." And all the ladies on the couch pressured her to sign that paper. But Andy did tell her, hey, We had another housewife that was just signing shit because her husband was presenting it to her, and then you turn around and they going to jail. So be careful. So we move on to Cheater B, and Andy basically says, "Do you think it's a good idea while you're in the midst of affair or ending a affair to get on national TV? Do you think that was a risk, or did you think this wouldn't come out?" So what we do find out about Cheater B is that he, the mistress, and another person has signed a NDA so that they cannot speak about one another nor the business. This man is a podiatrist. He operates on feet, but he also has an esthetician business where he made mistress and friend part owner of this business. Rulla, if you don't see what's going on, I don't know what to tell you. But because I feel like you are comfortable with having the knowledge